All right, what's up, ladies and gents? Lethal Lifestyle Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about mindset and the importance of having good mental resiliency, because you're going to see how the external environment that we live in, the things that we do, checking our cell phone in particularly, how that negatively influences who we are, the thoughts, the actions that we have, and therefore the quality of our life. So over here, we're just going to go ahead and start out with us right here. This is you, this happy person. And now all day long we have our cell phones, and our cell phones are designed to give us information that is going to elicit a response within the survival mechanisms of the brain, because survival, the avoidance of death and pain, is the number one priority that we all have in the unconscious primitive part of our brain. So as we're looking at information, if it has a negative connotation associated with it, then we're way more likely to look at that as opposed to anything positive. So what our cell phones do is they actually begin to feed us this negative information. You see there's 4 negative pieces of information for every 1 positive piece of information. And so let's break down exactly what negative versus positive information actually is before we dive further down into this. Here you see that we have frequency of energy and neurochemicals. So the frequency of the energy that you're putting out is directly correlated with the neurochemical disposition, or the hormones and the endorphins that your body is creating based off of your perceived experiences in life. Up here at the top, you have positive energy, positive vibrations. You hear about high energy people, positive frequencies, gratitude, servitude, being thankful, positivity, thinking optimistically. All that is going to be associated up here in the higher end of this spectrum. You have very high frequency wavelengths, very powerful stuff. And as we begin to digress further down, you can see that the colors begin to change as we get into the negative vibrational frequencies. So here we have things associated with like jealousy. And then as we go further down, we have actual things like disgust and guilt. And then finally, the most negative of all is things like anger, frustration, hate. And so when we have hate and frustration thoughts and emotions, what that does is that directly correlates to the neurochemicals in our bloodstream associated with negative feelings, negative behaviors. Things like adrenaline, cortisol, epinephrine, tachykinin, neuropeptide. All of these are directly correlated with the quality of your emotions. If you feel angry and upset, that means you're operating in a negative vibrational plane. If you're wanting and longing and desiring, being envious of other people, then you're operating in a negative vibrational plane. However, you can elevate your vibration and you can move yourself upward back into a positive state of existence through things like physical exercise, because when you physically exercise, it produces those feel-good neurochemicals, and those feel-good neurochemicals are directly correlated with the energy that you're putting out. And based off of what scientific research you read, like Kirlian photography, supposedly the rate as to which you're shedding skin cells, like tens of thousands of skin cells by the minute or something, the rate at which you're doing that. Kirlian found a way to photograph the aura around the human being. And it is thought that the rate at which you happen to shed your skin cells and the cloud or the aura that it leaves around you is directly also correlated with the vibrational frequency that you happen to be operating within. But the best way to just know what frequency you're operating is, how do you feel? Are you positive, in the zone, focused, motivated, getting things done? Are you stacking up little wins throughout your day? Or are you just operating in this constant state of everything sucks, I hate life, blah, 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 all this bullshit. I just want to go ahead and drink and be suicidal. So the energy that you vibrate at, your vibratory rate of frequency, is directly correlated with the neurochemical disposition in your body, which is directly correlated with your thoughts and your actions. So your thoughts, if they're negative, will have negative feelings, and those negative feelings will produce in negative actions. Negative actions reinforces the fact that you're operating down here on the low end of the spectrum, which means that you only begin to see and call other low frequency things into your life, because the way that our brain functions with the reticular activating system, it's a series of neural networks in our brain that is designed to help us see what's in our environment that we deem important. So if we have our reticular activating system here, It's like when you purchase a vehicle and then you see that vehicle everywhere, or when you're hungry and then all of a sudden you're just seeing all the food all over the place, or when you have to go pee, all of a sudden you're noticing all the running water. That's the reticular activating system in action, where it filters out the vast majority of sensory input, otherwise we would go nuts, and it only lets through the things that we're deeming important. Well, if we're operating in a negative vibrational state, then we're deeming of importance things that are also resonating at that negative vibrational frequency: death, destruction, murder, homicide, all that stuff, which brings us back here to the cell phone and why the cell phone and news media outlets are so important in terms of what we watch and see and allow within our lives. People even leave like the news playing in the background of their workplace. That's a surefire way to what? Drive you insane, because you're just getting all of this negative information fed into your brain. And you see here again, I have 4 red for every 1 green. This is a methodology that marketers and news network people, anybody really, they utilize, where they're giving you 4 negative pieces of information resonating with that survivalist part of the brain, elevating those negative neurochemicals within your body right here. And then they give you 1 nice piece of information, because the body's always seeking balance and homeostasis. They can't just keep you in a constant state of high revved anxiety, because eventually then you're just going to snap and break. But what they want to do is they also want to reinforce the body's need for homeostasis with some positive stuff, because once they feed you that positive information, well, now you're operating over here with these neurochemicals. So now we're getting a fine-tuned mix and balance. We're getting a little bit of feel-good stuff along with a lot of not feel-so-good stuff. And what that does to our reticular activating system is it carries out with us into the real world, so that as we're going about our day, all we're seeing is the negative information that we allowed ourselves to be fed through the news feeds, through social media, through our cell phones, based off of the algorithms that these programs are specifically designed to feed you. So it's always going to feed you the information it knows that you find negative. So if you're left, it's going to feed you a bunch of right garbage. If you're right, it's going to feed you a bunch of left garbage. If you're up, if you're down, it's always going to feed the opposite with a little bit of sprinkled goodness in there, because your body always wants to seek balance. It doesn't want to be always in a feel-good state. It doesn't want to be always in a negative state. It always wants to be right in that that neutral state, which is therefore a positive vibrational frequency. But it's operating at the lower spectrum, which is here. But that's a story for another time. So how do we create mental and emotional resiliency so that we can control the inflow of information that comes into our mind and conditions us and our frequency and the neurochemical disposition within our body, which therefore ultimately produces the quality of life that we have? Well, let's think of it this way. What is all this negative information associated with? Well, it's associated with other humans. Humans shooting and killing and wounding other humans. Sad face. Oh. So, when we allow that external conditioning to program into our mind all this negative information surrounding other humans, we immediately then, therefore, hate dealing with other humans. Anytime we go out in public, we get social anxiety. So what do? We pull out this cell phone so that we can get a little feel-good hit of dopamine, which will let us know, hey, everything's better as long as we keep looking at our mobile device. And then the cycle will then, therefore, continue over and over and over again. What can we do to pull ourselves out of this negative state into a more positive one, therefore influencing that negative neurochemical disposition into a positive one? Well, the number one most surefire best way to do it is to work out. Because when you work out, it automatically begins to produce the neurochemicals that are associated with positivity, love, and kindness. So if you're sitting here with all this negative stuff going on in your head due to the information you're allowing to be received, and then you begin to work out, well, what you're doing is you're actually now upping the amount of positive neurochemicals within your bloodstream, therefore elevating your energy, therefore carrying you forward throughout your day into a more positive state of existence, higher vibrational frequency, attracting those things, priming your reticular activating system to see those positive things, that information that is good at that high frequency level. Working out, the next thing that we could do is we could limit the amount of information that we allow ourselves to take in. So for example, how many of you look at your cell phone first thing in the morning when you wake up? you're still in a theta brainwave state. And if you're still in a theta brainwave state and you're taking in all that negative information, that's allowing your brain to be most malleable at that time for all that negative garbage you're taking in. So try reducing the amount of time you're exposed on your mobile device. I try to never be on mine, and it sucks because I have to post on social media and then I get caught in these loops and it just pisses me off, and then it puts me in that negative state. So I need to constantly be pulling myself out of that negative state. Don't use your mobile device for like an hour, 2 hours. Lock it out, throw it on your roof, whatever. Try to just not look at your damn phone for an hour. 99% of you won't be able to even do that. And that's troubling. That's a big deal, because you're just allowing all this negative information to constantly be swirling inside of your head, be getting programmed, which then therefore increases the amount of negative neurochemicals you have swimming around in your bloodstream. So when you wake up and you make an effort to not look at your phone, and you reduce the amount of bad information that you're taking in, now you are positively reinforcing that good neurochemical disposition, because you're working out and you're trying to think good, positive things, especially when you first wake up and your brain is most malleable in that theta brainwave state. So now we could even increase the amount of good information that we take in by restricting the things that we could look at. External environment conditioning, it truly does matter, ladies and gents. And this is wise, because what you allow to be brought into your own brain, your own stream of consciousness, whether in the conscious or even subconscious, whatever's just playing in your background, that is going to directly correlate with the types of neurochemicals that your body develops and puts inside of itself, or releases, I should say, due to that vibrational frequency. Are you a positive or negative person? Do you like your life? Do you not like your life? If you don't like your life, this is the number one most surefire way to begin to change things. And when we want to change things, we need to do it in small, manageable steps so that we could realign the actual self with the true self. Now, what do I mean by realign? Well, here we have our true self. This is like the greatest version of us. This is the greatest version of us and who we can be, operating at that high vibrational plane all the time. Wealth, riches, all that good stuff. Positivity, love. Down here we have the actual self. And you can see that we have this scale of time. So this is like 0 years old. This is, let's just say, 100 years old, or whenever you die. And then here we have alignment. Alignment is relative to the promises that you make to yourself, things you know you should do but you don't do, eating well, working out, maintaining good positive relationships with the people that you love and care about, being a contributing member to society and doing good for other people. All of this, when we do it, we're living in alignment with our true self. We're up here at that high vibrational frequency, attracting those things into our life by seeing them and observing them, and then capitalizing on those opportunities. You're just a likable person. Well, what happens is every single time that we don't work out, that we don't eat like we know we should, like we say we're going to do something that we don't do, we break promises not just to ourselves but to other people, we're actually falling further and further from that true self alignment into where we currently are as the actual self. Now, if you find yourself doing this repetitively over time and time again, you're going to end up perpetually in this negative state of existence, because you know you should be doing all these other things. You're hurting people, you're lying, you're cheating, you're stealing, and you just continue to do them for your own self-gratification in the short term. Why? Because you're operating within the confines of this negative vibrational frequency. You're just a negative person in general. However, the most beautiful thing about life is that we could consciously begin to intervene and actually begin to take steps back to realign ourselves with the true self. Because what happens in here is the further that we are from the top, that true self, this is where angst comes into play. This is where we get depression and guilt, suicidal tendencies, disgust, feeling ashamed of ourselves. Angst is just like the accumulation of all that stuff. And so the further that we get down here, the more angst fills in between. And so therefore, the more discontented we are with the quality of our life and the things that we do. So how do we begin to realign ourselves so that we can live a more fulfilled lifestyle? Well, it starts by doing things very simply. Go to bed at the same time, wake up at the same time every single day. I always recommend to people to get up at least at 5 a.m. And if you already do, or if your work schedule is wonky and you can't do that, then just get up 5 minutes earlier than what you have been doing, and just be consistent at that for 7 consecutive days. That's it. Go to bed at the same time, wake up at the same time. Then you just took a little step forward. Boom. We're trying to get this bottom out here, and there's going to be like a little bit of gravity associated with it because you're not just immediately going to stop. You're going to, up here is like when you're going to make the decision, but you're still going to kind of fall victim to your habitual thought processes because you've programmed it all into your subconscious, which makes it difficult to break. But regardless, it doesn't matter because once you start making that conscious change and you make that first step, now you're pulling yourself back up. Same day, every time. Cool. Then let's drink a tall glass of water when we wake up every morning. Do that for 7 days on top of getting up. Sweet. Then let's go ahead and begin to work out every single morning for 15, 20 minutes. Just go for a walk, do some push-ups, whatever it is, 20 minutes. And what happens is you're creating these little micro wins that build momentum and start to really carry you forward in the realignment process. And what's crazy is that down here, there's a lot of gravity. This is like being close to the center of the earth if you're a rocket ship. And then out here, there's like no or little gravity. And so as you begin to build momentum over month and month, year and year, these little things that you're doing, these little positive promises that you're keeping to yourself end up having exponentially large gains because you've been building up so much momentum and so much thrust there in the meantime that you're starting to break free from that gravitational negative energy pull. And it's moving you up into the positive. And so before you know it, a year or so goes by, and you've been building all these positive habits, these micro wins, to where your day-to-day, every single day, just focus on the day, has just propelled you and rocketed you beyond anywhere that you once thought you were capable of even being. You're in great physical health, your nutrition is dialed in, you're making a lot of money. And this is really important because when we come back to this stuff over here, all this negative information all day long, your mental and emotional resiliency, how strong you are, is going to be directly correlated with how physically and mentally fit you are. And if you're not physically and mentally fit, then you get victim and you become subject to all the negative information being fed to you. That does what? It draws you down further back into this negative state of existence down here. And that's when people kill themselves. And that's when people are weak. And so I was in a podcast with my buddy Nick over at Hard to Kill podcast. Great podcast. I recommend you go check it out. But we were talking about all the negative stuff taking place in the world, obvious killings with Boeing and the Chinese influence on American culture, et cetera, et cetera. And I always just want to take a moment to just stop, like I did in the interview, and I say, hey, look, like there's all this stuff going on. It's great to be aware of it. But what do we do to fight and to combat against it? And what you need to do is you need to build your mental, emotional, and physical resilience by working out and elevating that energy of yourself and keeping those promises to yourself and being disciplined so that you can make a lot of money, because money is going to be the number one thing that you use in order to provide and protect your family, which cools your survival instincts, your sympathetic nervous system, raises your creativity, allows you to make a bigger impact in the world and have influence on those external factors that are taking place right now. All those external influencers who are trying to manipulate and erode away at the fabric of American society. The best thing that you could do is to have yourself in good shape physically, mentally, and emotionally, and make a shit ton of money by providing a positive impact on the world so that you are capable of influencing people for good within this American society, within our culture, and upholding and keeping to the promises that we all have. Well, military people, police, law enforcement, we've all made promises to uphold the Constitution, but really that everybody should be making, because that's what got you here in the first place in the greatest land of all time ever created in history. It has its problems, yes, but that doesn't mean that we should allow other people to erode it from the inside and make it fall apart and disintegrate. So that right there is the importance of mental mindset resiliency, ladies and gents. That's how you can influence it. That's the influence it's having on you, external conditioning, environment. So improve yourself, get yourself up to speed. Reach out to me if you want help with this, because living a life of positivity and purpose is a lot better than the bottom. And I've been at the bottom. I've been way below even where this is at. So reach out to somebody if you need help. Let's get you there. Let's get you squared away and make a big difference in this world, in this country that I love so much. Take care.